The moment you dread, the one that shatters a lifetime of independence, might be silently brewing in the very place you feel safest, your own bathroom. For anyone over the age of 60, a seemingly innocent, everyday ritual, a habit you've likely repeated without a second thought for decades, could be meticulously, imperceptibly raising your risk of a devastating stroke. There are no dramatic chest pains, no blaring alarms, no whisper of impending danger. Instead, a serene, familiar environment steeped in the comfort of routine becomes an unwitting stage for a silent internal crisis. One moment, you're simply washing your hair under the warm spray, a routine comfort, perhaps humming a forgotten tune, feeling the day gently unfurl before you, and in the next, reality splinters. Your words become a struggle, an arm refuses to lift as if weighted by an invisible force, or your vibrant world dims as vision fades, leaving behind a terrifying, disorienting void. As a dedicated brain doctor, a neurologist who has spent countless hours unraveling the intricate mysteries of the human brain and tending to its delicate vulnerabilities, I have witnessed this heartbreaking scenario unfold far too many times, each instance leaving an indelible mark on my understanding of the insidious nature of stroke. We often attribute strokes, sudden collapses, or dangerous brain bleeds to obvious culprits. The more widely publicized villains of modern health, such as long-term smoking, a diet laden with unhealthy fats and processed sugars, or a relentlessly sedentary lifestyle that neglects the body's fundamental need for movement. Yet, the insidious truth, a truth that often remains tragically unspoken and unacknowledged, is that many such catastrophic events are instead triggered by the very actions seniors perform within the perceived sanctuary of their bathroom. Every single morning, actions so ingrained they are practically invisible to conscious thought. Your cherished shower routine, from the precise water's temperature and the exact timing of your wash, to the subtle, often unconscious way you move and position your body, holds the profound, yet often overlooked potential to subtly, relentlessly push your delicate brain towards a crisis, gradually eroding its resilience until a breaking point is reached. Today, I am compelled by a deep sense of medical and ethical responsibility to reveal 9 deeply ingrained shower habits that significantly elevate your risk of stroke, provoke dangerous and sudden blood pressure spikes that strain your cardiovascular system to its limits, or incite the perilous formation of life-threatening blood clots, particularly during those vulnerable early morning hours when your body is at its least resilient and its natural protective mechanisms are still slowly rousing. If you are past 60, or if your heart holds affection and profound care for someone who is, this urgent health message may prove to be the most vital information you will ever encounter, a critical piece of the puzzle that could, quite literally, save a life or preserve an entire future. It is imperative that you remain with me until the very end, for the space you believe is your sanctuary, your haven of cleanliness and relaxation, might, in fact, conceal your greatest, most unexpected threat: the treachery of the morning warmth. For many individuals past the age of 60, a steaming hot shower first thing in the morning isn't merely about achieving a state of cleanliness. It's a profound, comforting ritual, a deeply ingrained sensory awakening that signals the comforting start of a new day, leaving them feeling refreshed, vibrantly alive, and mentally prepared for whatever challenges or joys lie ahead. This daily indulgence has been a trusted companion for years, perhaps even decades, a consistent cornerstone of their morning routine, a moment of peaceful solitude and warmth before the world intrudes. However, as a brain doctor specializing in the delicate intricacies of neurological health in aging populations, I must deliver a stark warning, a piece of critical medical advice that could profoundly shock you precisely because it challenges a long-held and seemingly benign assumption. This seemingly innocuous act, this dependable routine you've come to cherish and rely upon, could in fact be an unseen accomplice, meticulously setting the stage for a stroke that may arrive without a moment's notice, its true underlying cause remaining a baffling mystery until it's tragically irreversible, stripping away your independence and altering your future. Let's delve into the delicate and complex internal mechanics of your body at this critical juncture immediately upon waking. When you step into a hot shower immediately after rousing from sleep, your body's myriad blood vessels react with astonishing speed and intensity, dilating dramatically to counteract the sudden, enveloping increase in skin temperature, a natural thermoregulatory response. Simultaneously, your physiology is still in the intricate and somewhat precarious process of transitioning from a horizontal state of restful, supine sleep to an upright, active posture, a shift that itself naturally precipitates a subtle yet significant dip in blood pressure as gravity begins to exert its influence. The truly dangerous convergence of widely dilated blood vessels throughout your body and a brain that is still in a semi-somnolent, somewhat sluggish state results in a critical and perilous reduction of vital blood flow to the brain precisely when it demands it most, when it is attempting to fully wake up and organize its complex functions for the day ahead. For younger, more robust individuals, this temporary blood pressure fluctuation and shift in blood distribution might merely manifest as a fleeting moment of mild lightheadedness, a slight transient dizzy spell, or a momentary feeling of disorientation as they stand. But for older adults, particularly those already managing underlying heart conditions such as congestive heart failure or a history of arrhythmias, individuals with the silent narrowing of arteries, atherosclerosis, that often accompanies aging, or those who are on powerful blood pressure regulating medications that further influence vascular tone, the implications are far graver and carry a significantly increased risk of neurological damage. When this vital blood flow becomes erratic, turbulent, and persistently insufficient, the brain can be dangerously deprived of life-sustaining oxygen and essential nutrients. This quiet, internal struggle, occurring silently beneath the surface of a comforting ritual, creates the perfect storm for a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often colloquially referred to as a mini-stroke, a powerful, urgent warning sign that should never be ignored, or in more dire and catastrophic circumstances, a full-blown ischemic stroke, where a prolonged lack of blood flow causes permanent brain damage. In such a compromised and vulnerable state, particularly in arteries that have already lost their youthful elasticity and become stiffened with age, dangerous blood clots can form and then tragically lodge themselves in these already narrowed or compromised arteries, effectively severing the life-sustaining circulation to crucial parts of your brain. This catastrophic event, this silent internal betrayal, can unfold in mere seconds, even as the soothing warm water cascades innocently down your back, lulling you into a false sense of security. I am forever haunted by the case of Mr. Leonard James, a 75-year-old retired carpenter from the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, a man whose strong, calloused hands had shaped countless structures, from sturdy homes to intricate furniture, embodying a lifetime of skilled craftsmanship and dedication. He sought my help after an alarming and deeply unsettling collapse in his bathroom, an incident that left him profoundly shaken and confused. His loving wife discovered him, bewildered and utterly unable to articulate words clearly, slumped unceremoniously on the shower bench with a disconcerting and alarming weakness afflicting one entire side of his body, rendering it unresponsive. There was no fall, no impact to his head, no obvious external injury, yet his symptoms were undeniably indicative of a profound and serious neurological event. Subsequent advanced imaging scans tragically confirmed that he had indeed suffered a mild stroke, a devastating blow to a man who had always prided himself on his unwavering strength and independence. As we meticulously and painstakingly pieced together his morning routine, every seemingly insignificant detail, the puzzle clicked into place with chilling clarity, revealing a pattern of unwitting self-sabotage. Every single morning for 40 years, a habit he genuinely believed to be healthy, invigorating, and cleansing, he would wake, skip breakfast entirely, and then immediately immerse himself in a steamy 20-minute hot shower, a ritual he had never once questioned. For his aging, less resilient vascular system, a system that had endured the natural wear and tear of decades, this ingrained routine, intended for rejuvenation and comfort, had become a subtle yet persistent daily trauma, slowly but surely pushing his brain closer to the precipice of crisis. We often mistakenly perceive strokes as sudden, entirely unpredictable, and completely beyond our control, a cruel twist of fate that strikes without warning. However, the unsettling truth, one that modern neurology increasingly reveals, is that many strokes are not isolated incidents, but rather the insidious culmination of silent, often imperceptible damage, accumulating incrementally over years, meticulously shaped by unquestioned habits and deeply ingrained routines performed unconsciously, outside the realm of deliberate thought. The morning hot shower, for many older adults, is precisely one of these insidious habits. While you may emerge from such a shower feeling invigorated, refreshed, and ready to face the day, the internal damage, if it's occurring, remains invisible, a ticking time bomb slowly counting down until the day it erupts into undeniable, life-altering reality. The solution, though surprisingly simple in its execution, holds profound and life-saving significance for older adults. Begin your day with a gentle, unhurried awakening, allowing your body to gradually transition from sleep to alertness. Sit calmly at the very edge of your bed for a few moments, giving your circulatory system time to adjust to gravity. Slowly sip a full glass of room temperature water, providing crucial hydration before any demanding activity. This deliberate and mindful pause allows your heart and brain to gradually acclimate to the upright position, minimizing sudden pressure changes. Crucially, allow at least 20 minutes, ideally 30 or more, to pass before you even consider entering the shower, giving your internal systems ample time to stabilize. And when you finally do step into the shower, ensure the water is comfortably warm, a soothing temperature, never scalding hot, which could provoke dangerous vascular reactions. These minor mindful adjustments, these conscious choices, possess the profound power to avert a life-altering stroke, to safeguard your cognitive clarity, and to preserve your precious independence. For as we gracefully navigate the later chapters of life, our bodies lose their youthful capacity for instantaneous recovery and resilience. They do not forgive the physiological stresses and strains the way they once did with effortless ease. Your cognitive clarity, your precious balance, your cherished independence, all these invaluable and irreplaceable aspects of your existence, the very fabric of who you are, begin with making one thoughtful, informed, and conscious choice each morning, a choice to protect your most vital organ. Yet, if you believed hot water was the bathroom's most significant, insidious threat, prepare yourself for what cold water might inflict upon your aging heart and delicate brain could be even more alarming, even more immediately dangerous. The next habit I will discuss carries an even greater element of surprise, urgency, and peril, revealing another layer of unexpected vulnerability. The shock of cold water presents a unique and often misunderstood peril. There's a pervasive belief, particularly as we mature and seek to maintain youthful vigor, that a bracing cold shower can serve as an instant wake-up call, a powerful stimulant for circulation, and a means to fortify the body against the world's rigors, a kind of self-imposed, invigorating challenge. On the surface, this notion appears entirely sensible, even commendable, rooted in historical practices and anecdotal evidence. But what if I were to disclose, with the full weight of medical understanding and clinical observation, that for older adults, the sudden, abrupt jolt of cold water could act as a clandestine trigger for a stroke, impose immense and acute strain on the heart, or even precipitate a sudden, life-threatening cardiac arrest? What feels like an invigorating burst of energy, a refreshing shock to the senses for a young, peak-condition athlete whose cardiovascular system is remarkably elastic and adaptive, can, for a 70-year-old heart, often already working harder and dealing with age-related changes, register as an acute, dangerous, and potentially catastrophic shock to the entire delicate system, pushing it beyond its compensatory limits. Let me illuminate the intricate, often unseen processes unfolding not merely on your skin's surface, where goosebumps rise and a shiver runs down your spine, but deep within the complex, interconnected machinery of your body, where critical physiological shifts are taking place. When your skin is abruptly exposed to cold water, especially upon first waking or after a prolonged period of stillness and warmth, your peripheral blood vessels respond by constricting with astonishing rapidity and intensity. This is your body's primal, inbuilt defense mechanism, an ancient evolutionary response designed to conserve precious core heat and prevent hypothermia by shunting blood away from the surface. However, for someone over the age of 60 whose arteries have often lost their youthful elasticity, becoming stiffer and less pliable due to years of wear and tear and conditions like atherosclerosis, and whose heart is already working harder to maintain optimal blood pressure and perfusion throughout the body. This sudden widespread vasoconstriction can unleash a dangerously sharp and sudden spike in blood pressure. This isn't merely an uncomfortable sensation of cold. It carries the grave potential to be immediately life-threatening. Your heart is suddenly forced to exert itself exponentially, working against significantly tightened and narrowed vessels, struggling to push blood through a system under immense acute pressure. This intense, sudden exertion can lead to erratic heart rhythms, arrhythmias, an imbalance in vital oxygen supply to the heart muscle itself, and in particularly vulnerable individuals with underlying clotting predispositions, the perilous formation of dangerous blood clots. Should these clots detach from their formation sites and embark on a treacherous journey through the bloodstream to the brain, they can become irrevocably lodged in already narrowed or stiffened cerebral arteries, effectively cutting off crucial blood flow to vital neural tissue. This precisely is how strokes materialize, not always as the culmination of years of chronic disease, the slow burn of unhealthy habits, but sometimes tragically from a single acute moment of profound physiological shock, a shock that overwhelms the body's delicate regulatory systems. I witnessed this devastating phenomenon firsthand with Mr. Robert Hayes, a 79-year-old retired firefighter from the chilly climes of Wisconsin. Robert was, for his age, remarkably robust, a man justifiably proud of his enduring physical resilience, his unwavering commitment to fitness, and his dedication to maintaining a sharp, active mind. He had diligently researched various health tips online, an admirable pursuit, and, convinced of its benefits, had adopted the practice of concluding his showers with a vigorous 30-second blast of icy water, convinced it would supercharge his circulation, enhance his brain health, and provide an invigorating start to his day. For several weeks, he reported feeling genuinely well, even unusually energized, attributing his newfound vitality to this bracing ritual. But one crisp winter morning, after stepping out of a warm shower and beginning his customary cold rinse, a sudden constricting tightness gripped his chest, a sensation he immediately recognized as deeply alarming. Moments later, he collapsed onto the bathroom floor, his body going limp without warning. His wife, with remarkable presence of mind and swift action, immediately called 911, her quick thinking undoubtedly saving his life. At the hospital, after a battery of urgent tests, we confirmed that Robert had suffered a transient ischemic attack, TIA, a mini-stroke, a critical warning sign that his brain had been momentarily starved of blood flow. Imaging scans clearly revealed a small clot in a cerebral artery that had momentarily but dangerously obstructed blood flow to a part of his brain. His heart rhythm had also become dangerously unstable, veering into arrhythmia. The perilous synergy of sudden cold exposure, the body's natural early morning blood pressure elevation, the circadian rhythm causing a morning surge, and the inherent vulnerabilities of his aging cardiovascular system had conspired to create a perfect storm, a moment of profound physiological stress. When I gently inquired about his morning habits, a look of profound shock and deep disbelief washed over his face, as if he had just discovered a fundamental truth that had been hidden in plain sight. "I genuinely thought I was doing my body good, Doc," he whispered, his voice tinged with a heartbreaking blend of regret and bewilderment. "I had no idea I was putting my heart under such immense acute stress every single day. And therein lies the true tragedy, the silent epidemic. Countless seniors, armed with the best intentions, follow advice that sounds beneficial, appears logical, or is championed by younger, more resilient individuals, completely unaware of the inherent fragility and altered physiological responses of the aging body, a body that has simply lost its youthful capacity for extremes. Here is the unvarnished truth we all must confront and internalize. As we age, our cardiovascular system progressively loses its youthful tolerance for extremes, for sudden, drastic changes. What once felt refreshingly invigorating, a source of vitality in our younger years, can now, for an older body, induce an erratic heartbeat, dangerously elevate blood pressure to unsafe and potentially catastrophic thresholds, and precipitate the formation of treacherous, life-threatening blood clots. This risk is further amplified during colder months, when your core body temperature is naturally lower, and overall circulation tends to be more sluggish, making the contrast with icy water even more severe. If you find cooler showers enjoyable, and they genuinely contribute to your well-being, that is perfectly acceptable. But under no circumstances should you transition abruptly from warm to cold water. If you feel an absolute compelling necessity to incorporate cooler water into your routine, introduce it gradually, allowing your body ample time to adjust incrementally, perhaps by decreasing the temperature by a degree or two at a time over several minutes. And most critically, completely avoid genuinely cold showers or rinses if you have any history of heart rhythm irregularities, persistently high blood pressure, or episodes of dizziness when standing or changing positions. These are unequivocally red flags, urgent signals your body is sending you. They must not be ignored, for they indicate a cardiovascular system already operating close to its limits. Because in that split second of shock, when the cold water makes abrupt contact with your skin and your heart begins to race frantically, you may be dangerously unaware that deep within, your delicate brain is being imperiled. Blood clots can form, vessels can constrict to dangerous levels, and your chances of evading a stroke narrow precariously with each sudden cold jolt. Mr. Hayes was incredibly fortunate. He recovered with only minor speech difficulties and with wise counsel has since replaced his dangerous cold rinses with gentle, consistent daily walks, a far safer and more beneficial way to invigorate his circulation. He often tells me with a wry, knowing smile, "Doc, I'd much rather be warm and walking than cold and collapsed." And he is absolutely, profoundly correct. But now, prepare for an even more startling revelation. What if I told you that the mere time of day you choose to shower, even if the water temperature is perfectly calibrated and every other precaution is taken, could still dramatically increase your stroke risk? You will undoubtedly want to pay close attention to this next critical insight, for it unveils another hidden layer of vulnerability in your daily routine. The peril of early morning showers. There exists a subtle, yet deeply insidious danger that lurks within the earliest hours of the day, a time frame when most of the world is still slowly stirring. This is a time many seniors, driven by admirable habits of punctuality, a strong work ethic, and a desire for order, believe is optimal for productivity, for ticking off tasks, maintaining a structured schedule that brings comfort, and upholding a crucial sense of control over their lives as other aspects inevitably change. Yet, what an alarming number of people fail to grasp, and what even some medical professionals inadvertently overlook in their general advice, is that the period between approximately 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. represents the most perilous window for your delicate brain, particularly if you are over 60, a time frame of heightened physiological vulnerability. If you are someone whose ingrained routine involves stepping into the shower shortly after awakening, perhaps even before a cup of coffee or a light bite, your perfectly well-intentioned habit could, unbeknownst to you, be placing you at a genuine and significant risk of experiencing a stroke, a risk amplified by the natural rhythms of your aging body. Let me meticulously outline the physiological cascade that occurs within your body during these critical early morning hours, unveiling the scientific basis for this hidden danger. In this specific time frame, your brain naturally undergoes a surge in cortisol, often dubbed the stress hormone. This is not inherently negative. It is a fundamental and essential component of your circadian rhythm, your body's ancient internal biological clock gracefully rousing itself and preparing for the cognitive and physical demands of the upcoming day. Concurrently, your blood pressure naturally spikes as your cardiovascular system endeavors to transition from a state of deep rest, where metabolic demands are minimal, to one of active engagement, preparing for movement and thought. This natural surge in blood pressure in isolation isn't inherently dangerous. It's a normal part of waking up. However, its peril dramatically amplifies when it is combined with additional physical stressors, such as the act of standing upright in a hot shower within a confined space, often while in a state of mild dehydration from hours of sleep and before consuming any nourishing food to stabilize blood sugar. This perilous trifecta, elevated cortisol, a natural and pronounced spike in blood pressure, and sudden exposure to heat can quietly but powerfully push your already aging arteries to their absolute limit, straining their elasticity and resilience. The heat from the shower, while feeling profoundly comforting and soothing to tired muscles, causes the blood vessels in your skin to dilate significantly. While this sounds innocuous, in reality it paradoxically triggers a redistribution of blood away from your brain, precisely at a moment when your overall blood pressure is already naturally elevated and your brain requires maximum, consistent perfusion of oxygenated blood. This combined strain, when layered upon arteries that have stiffened with age, atherosclerosis, and blood vessel walls that may have thinned or become more fragile, conditions regrettably common in older adults, creates the ideal, highly vulnerable environment for a dangerous blood clot to form, or, more catastrophically, for a fragile vessel to rupture under the increased pressure. Both of these dire scenarios directly and inevitably lead to a stroke, one an ischemic stroke caused by blockage, the other a hemorrhagic stroke caused by bleeding. My thoughts frequently turn to a patient of mine, Miss Carol Matthews, an 83-year-old former piano teacher from the quiet suburbs of Ohio. She was a woman who took immense pride in the meticulous structure of her daily life, a routine that had brought her comfort and a sense of mastery for decades. Awake by 6:00 a.m., showered promptly by 6:15 a.m., and breakfast meticulously prepared and consumed at 7:00 a.m. This precise schedule provided her with an invaluable sense of independence and control, a precious commodity many seniors fiercely guard as their bodies inevitably undergo the changes of age. But one fateful morning, mere moments after she had diligently stepped out of the shower, her right arm suddenly went limp, utterly unresponsive, a terrifying and inexplicable loss of control. She found herself utterly unable to speak, her face unnervingly drooped on one side, a classic and alarming sign of neurological distress. Her daughter, arriving shortly thereafter for their weekly visit, discovered her slumped against the cold bathroom wall, barely conscious and profoundly distressed. We later confirmed that Miss Matthews had suffered an ischemic stroke caused by a blood clot that tragically obstructed blood flow to her left brain hemisphere, the area responsible for speech and right-sided movement. As we painstakingly reviewed her case, every seemingly minor detail coalesced with chilling clarity, forming a coherent and tragic narrative. The combination of her body's natural early morning pressure surge, the enveloping heat of her warm shower, which further dilated her vessels and shunted blood away from her brain, and her typical lack of prior hydration had conspired to create a silent internal pressure cooker, pushing her delicate vascular system past its breaking point. It was never a fall that caused this. It wasn't a medication error. It was purely and simply the timing of her routine, a pattern she had faithfully followed for decades without ever questioning its potential impact on her aging physiology. Here is the absolutely vital message I want every senior to deeply internalize and never forget. Your body, whether you are in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, no longer regulates blood pressure and blood flow with the same youthful efficiency it possessed decades ago. What was once considered entirely normal, harmless, and even beneficial can now, for your aging system, become a profound and dangerous strain. And those early mornings, particularly when coupled with heat exposure, prolonged standing, and a state of hunger, can quietly, insidiously trigger neurological events that can strip away your ability to speak, your mobility, or even your cherished independence, forever altering the course of your life. If showering in the morning is an absolute, unavoidable necessity for you, it is crucial to delay it for at least 45 minutes, ideally an hour, after you have completely woken up. Prioritize hydration first. Consume a full, substantial glass of room temperature water as soon as you are awake. Eat something light, even if it's just a banana, half a slice of toast, or a small handful of nuts, to gently stabilize your blood sugar and provide a minimal energetic buffer for your system. Allow your heart and brain a gradual, gentle transition into the day before subjecting them to the significant pressure changes and demands of a shower, especially one that is warm. And if you are currently taking blood pressure medications or have a documented history of arrhythmias, previous strokes, or transient ischemic attacks, this adjustment is not merely optional, it is unequivocally critical for your survival, for preserving your precious brain function, and for maintaining your overall well-being. Ms. Matthews is currently undergoing intensive rehabilitation, an arduous and often frustrating process. She is slowly regaining her ability to walk with assistance, but her speech remains noticeably slow and effortful, and her right hand, once so agile and expressive on the piano keys, can no longer play the melodies she once taught with such passion. Her daughter confided in me, her voice heavy with regret and a deep sadness. "I wish we had known. She never missed a day. She genuinely thought it made her strong." And this is what renders these stories so profoundly heartbreaking. These are not reckless choices. They are ingrained, innocent, even commendable habits that, through the simple, relentless passage of time and the inevitable, natural changes of an aging body, have simply become too much to bear, pushing delicate systems past their limits. Yet the time of day isn't the sole antagonist lurking in your bathroom, silently plotting against your well-being. Because even if you conscientiously shower at the ideal hour, even if the water temperature is perfectly calibrated, there's another, often overlooked, invisible threat beneath your very feet that might pose an even greater danger. A hazard that has unfortunately led more seniors to emergency rooms and into the bleak reality of lost independence than we care to acknowledge. You will absolutely want to remain with me for this next crucial insight, for it concerns a risk that is shockingly common, yet frequently ignored until it's too late. The silent peril underfoot, slippery floors, and absent grab bars represents a deeply insidious and tragically common danger. There's a silent, ever-present hazard lurking in virtually every American bathroom, a danger so commonplace, so intimately familiar, that most seniors navigate it daily without ever pausing to truly consider its potentially devastating implications for their health and independence. I am referring, of course, to the hard, unyielding, and perpetually wet surfaces beneath your feet, the gleaming, smooth porcelain tiles that offer treacherous grip, the treacherously slippery, often curved bathtub surfaces, and the conspicuous, often alarming absence of any reliable, firmly installed support to grasp when your balance inevitably falters, as it is prone to do with age. For older adults, this isn't merely an inconvenience, a minor nuisance to be carefully navigated. It is, quite literally, a ticking time bomb, one that all too frequently culminates in catastrophic, life-altering consequences, stripping away dignity and self-reliance in a single, brutal moment. Most people instinctively associate strokes with internal events, something that happens deep within the intricate, delicate network of the brain, a purely physiological malfunction. However, a crucial and often forgotten connection, one that emergency room doctors and neurologists are all too familiar with, is that falls can also act as powerful, immediate triggers for strokes, either directly through immediate physical trauma to the head and neck, or indirectly through a complex cascade of physiological responses initiated by the sudden, violent impact and subsequent shock. When an elderly individual experiences a fall, especially within the confined, unyielding, and unforgiving space of a shower, the delicate brain is instantly thrust into a state of extreme vulnerability, susceptible to sudden and severe trauma, such as concussions, contusions, or even intracranial bleeds. What's even more alarming and less widely understood is that if there is already an underlying vascular disease, such as hardened arteries, atherosclerosis, that make vessels brittle, or persistently high blood pressure that strains vessel walls, the sheer physical stress, the acute pressure surge, and the sudden mechanical forces induced by the fall itself can cause a fragile blood vessel to rupture, leading to a hemorrhagic stroke, or more commonly, cause a pre-existing, unstable clot to dislodge from its mooring in an artery and travel to the brain. In this chaotic moment of impact, dangerous blood clots are formed due to the trauma, or existing ones are mobilized, blocking vital pathways and cutting off critical blood flow. What began as a simple, momentary slip transforms, in a terrifying instant, into something far more profoundly dangerous, irreversible, and life-altering, a tragedy that could have been prevented with a simple piece of hardware. I vividly recall the poignant case of Mr. William Turner, an 82-year-old retired veteran from the heartland of Missouri, a man fiercely proud of his unwavering independence, still residing alone in the beloved home he had meticulously built with his own strong hands, brick by brick, board by board. He held an unwavering belief in self-reliance and harbored a strong aversion to ever becoming a burden on anyone, a common and understandable sentiment among his generation. One seemingly ordinary morning, as he carefully stepped into the shower, his foot unexpectedly lost purchase on the smooth, wet tile, a surface that had betrayed countless others before him. Instinctively, he reached out, desperately grasping for anything, any stable point of support, any anchor in that terrifying moment of free fall, but there was nothing there, only slick, cold air. He fell backward with brutal, unyielding force, striking the side of his head squarely on the unyielding porcelain tub, a sickening thud echoing in the empty room. Although he did not lose consciousness immediately, remaining disoriented but awake, when he attempted to rise, he found his left leg utterly unresponsive, a chilling sign of neurological damage. His neighbor, growing concerned after a prolonged absence of his usual morning activities, found him nearly 2 agonizing hours later, slumped in his bathroom, cold and terrified. At the hospital, a battery of urgent scans revealed the terrifying extent of his injuries. Mr. Turner had not only suffered a severe concussion, a traumatic blow to his brain, but also a debilitating stroke in the right hemisphere of his brain. This stroke was almost certainly precipitated by the intense physical stress and acute pressure surge from the fall itself, compounded by a pre-existing clot that became dislodged in the traumatic chaos of the moment, a silent killer activated by external force. He had never once imagined that his shower, the familiar space where he had begun every single day of his adult life for decades, would be the very catalyst that irrevocably altered the remainder of his existence, stealing his cherished independence in an instant. Here is a critical truth that far too many seniors overlook, often to their immense detriment. Balance, a foundational and often unappreciated element of independent living, inevitably diminishes with age. Your inner ear, the sophisticated organ responsible for spatial orientation and maintaining equilibrium, loses its acute sharpness and responsiveness. Muscles, once quick and responsive, become slower and weaker, less able to react instantaneously to unexpected shifts. Reflexes, once lightning fast, become sluggish and delayed, unable to catch you before a fall. Even common medications, ranging from blood pressure pills to mild sedatives and sleep aids, can subtly yet significantly impair your sense of stability and proprioception. One unexpected slip, one sudden, ill-timed turn, and your entire world, your meticulously built life, can be irrevocably altered in a fraction of a second. The most poignant aspect of this tragic reality is that it is largely preventable, a crisis averted with simple, conscious choices. The installation of grab bars, not merely a single token one, but several strategically placed, robust supports near the shower entry, inside the stall itself, and adjacent to the toilet, is not an admission of defeat to the aging process or a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is a powerful act of taking proactive, intelligent control over it, a statement of fierce self-preservation. Non-slip mats with strong suction cups, specially designed shower chairs that provide stable seating, and bright, appropriate, glare-free lighting are not simply conveniences or luxuries. They are, for individuals over 65, indispensable medical safety tools, as vital as any prescription. We would never countenance asking a child to walk on a dangerously icy surface without protective, gripping boots. So why do we harbor the expectation that a senior should navigate a slick, wet tile surface without adequate and readily available support, without the tools to ensure their safety? Falls remain the leading cause of traumatic brain injuries among seniors, a silent epidemic often playing out. in the privacy of their homes. And once you have experienced one fall, your susceptibility to a second, along with the very real, terrifying risk of forfeiting your cherished independence, dramatically skyrockets, creating a vicious cycle of fear and fragility. Rehabilitation from such events is often arduous, protracted, and painfully slow, and full recovery remains uncertain, never guaranteed. In numerous instances, particularly when the head sustains trauma, a fall can initiate clot formation or internal bleeding that the delicate brain simply cannot endure, leading to permanent damage or worse. Mr. Turner now resides in a nursing facility, no longer in the beloved home he constructed with his own hands, a profound loss of autonomy. While his speech has returned, he grapples daily with the challenges of walking and balance, a constant reminder of that fateful morning. During one of my visits, he softly murmured, his voice tinged with a deep, haunting regret, "Doc, I've survived war zones, faced down real danger, but I never once imagined the greatest threat, the most profound danger, would be in my own bathroom." His words have resonated with me ever since, a potent, chilling reminder that the most profound threats are not always ostentatious or loud, not always obvious or dramatic. Sometimes they are silent, insidious, deceptively slick, and quite literally right beneath our feet, waiting for a single misstep. But if you are under the impression that slippery floors are the sole threat to your oxygen supply and balance within the bathroom, I urge you to reconsider, to open your mind to another, less obvious peril. For another invisible danger, often unseen and unacknowledged by most, pervades the very air you breathe, subtly eroding your defenses. What truly transpires when your shower, your haven of warmth, transforms your bathroom into an oppressive, sealed chamber of dense, suffocating steam? Stay with me, for this next revelation might be the most commonly overlooked of all the risks we've discussed, a hazard silently robbing you of the very air you need. The invisible chokehold. Poor ventilation and steamy dangers reveals a frequently ignored, yet potentially life-threatening risk. For most people, especially as the morning chill still lingers or after a long, arduous day, the idea of a warm, steamy shower evokes feelings of profound comfort, akin to being enveloped in a soft, inviting blanket, a gentle embrace that seems to soothe aching joints, relax tense muscles, and melt away the stiffness and accumulated stresses of a new day. For many older adults, this sensation feels like a small, well-deserved luxury, a perfect, comforting beginning to what they hope will be another good, healthy day, a moment of profound relaxation. Yet what if I were to tell you that this very comforting fog, this dense, enveloping cloud of steam that saturates your bathroom air, far from being innocuous, could be silently, insidiously robbing your brain of the single most crucial element it needs to merely survive, to function effectively, and to sustain life? I am talking, of course, about oxygen, the fundamental fuel for all brain activity. The insidious truth, one that often goes unacknowledged until a crisis strikes, is this: when your bathroom lacks proper and efficient ventilation, that seemingly relaxing and comforting steam does not simply dissipate, it metamorphoses into a dangerous oxygen-depleting trap. The moist, heavy air rapidly displaces the fresh, oxygen-rich air, causing oxygen levels within the enclosed space to plummet, often without you even consciously noticing, as the changes are subtle and gradual. The air grows thick and oppressive, becoming difficult to breathe. The mirror fogs completely, obscuring your reflection, and you might experience a deceptive sense of enveloping warmth and a pleasant, almost hypnotic drowsiness, a false sense of security. But beneath this surface comfort, a perilous physiological shift is occurring deep within your body, one that your brain registers acutely. For seniors, this subtle but critical shift in atmospheric oxygen can be sufficient to trigger episodes of disorienting confusion, a profound sense of lightheadedness, or most alarmingly, a stroke, initiated by the brain being starved of its vital energy source. As we age, the efficiency of our lung function naturally diminishes. Our lungs become less elastic, and our capacity to absorb oxygen can decrease. Our heart, in its tireless, relentless effort, must work considerably harder, often at an elevated rate, to pump adequately oxygenated blood to the brain and other vital organs. If you are already managing pre-existing respiratory conditions such as COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, congestive heart failure, or even mild exercise-induced asthma, your body's inherent capacity to adapt to compromised air circulation and reduced oxygen levels is significantly impaired, putting you at an even greater risk. While you might not immediately feel the direct, acute impact of this oxygen deprivation, perhaps dismissing it as general fatigue, your brain unequivocally does. Reduced oxygen levels render the brain far more vulnerable to disruptions in blood flow, making it less resilient to any other stressors. If your arteries are already stiffened by atherosclerosis, or if you unknowingly harbor silent, unstable plaques, a regrettably common reality for many seniors, the crucial lack of oxygen can irrevocably tip the scales, pushing your brain towards a crisis. This oxygen deprivation can trigger the formation of dangerous blood clots due to sluggish circulation, induce life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias as the heart struggles, and create the perfect precarious conditions for a brain vessel to either constrict and close, vasospasm, or, in the worst and most tragic case, to rupture under stress, leading to a hemorrhagic stroke. The very steam you breathe in, the vapor you seek for comfort and relaxation, could be slowly, imperceptibly pushing your delicate brain to the very precipice of disaster, stealing its precious oxygen with every inhalation. I will never forget the case of Mrs. Elaine Foster, a spry and seemingly vigorous 77-year-old former choir director from the bustling state of Illinois. She initially presented to me with a constellation of concerning and deeply unsettling symptoms: recurrent morning dizziness, a persistent, pervasive brain fog that made her feel constantly confused, and occasional episodes of slurred speech that, thankfully, would resolve within the hour, leading her to dismiss them. At first, she harbored a deep-seated fear of early dementia, a common and terrifying concern among her age group, convinced her mind was failing her. However, her brain scans were remarkably clear. Her laboratory tests yielded entirely normal results, and nothing overtly obvious suggested a clear neurological cause until I meticulously inquired about her precise morning routine. She explained with a tone of quiet contentment and a hint of self-satisfaction, "Every single day, I begin with a long, hot shower. I keep all the windows closed, and I never turn on the fan. I truly love the steam. It feels so comforting, and it genuinely soothes my arthritis, especially on cold mornings." What Mrs. Foster unknowingly subjected herself to every morning was effectively a self-imposed low-oxygen chamber, inducing temporary but recurrent hypoxia, a dangerous lack of oxygen to the brain, and almost certainly experiencing recurrent transient ischemic attacks, TIAs, the very warning signs of an impending full-blown stroke. Consequently, her bathroom, devoid of proper and adequate ventilation, was subtly, relentlessly choking off the very mental clarity, cognitive sharpness, and overall vitality she so deeply cherished and depended upon. And these TIAs, it is crucial to understand, are far from harmless. They are profound, urgent warnings, the kind that invariably precede a full-blown, debilitating, and potentially permanent stroke if the underlying cause is not addressed. We implemented a few simple, yet profoundly effective and life-saving changes to her routine: opening a window during her showers, consistently activating the exhaust fan, and reducing the duration of her time under excessively hot water. Within a mere week, her distressing symptoms completely vanished, as if they had never existed. During her follow-up appointment, she looked at me with a mixture of immense relief and profound disbelief, stating, "Doc, I genuinely thought my brain was failing. I had absolutely no idea it was the very air I was breathing that was causing all this." Her story, regrettably, is far from unique. It is a common thread woven through the fabric of many seniors' experiences. The vast majority of seniors never give a moment's thought to bathroom ventilation. Their focus remains entirely on the water, the soap, the comforting warmth, but critically, not on the life-sustaining oxygen their brain so desperately requires. If your bathroom is small, lacks a window, and has a non-functional or absent exhaust fan, the risk you face is significantly magnified, becoming a constant silent threat. If you are already managing heart or lung conditions, or are taking medications that influence your blood pressure or respiratory function, this is a factor you absolutely cannot afford to disregard or dismiss. Take this warning seriously. Ensure your exhaust fan is running throughout your entire shower. Crack open a window, even during the coldest winter months, to allow for essential fresh air exchange. Keep the bathroom door slightly ajar to facilitate air circulation. You are not merely ventilating a room or clearing a foggy mirror. You are actively safeguarding your brain from insidious oxygen deprivation that can lead to perilous blood clots, disorienting confusion, or a catastrophic stroke. But even with the benefit of fresh air and optimized breathing, another insidious danger patiently awaits, one that creeps in when you least anticipate it, just moments after you have finished a meal, deceptively appearing innocuous. And what it can do to your brain might surprise you even more profoundly. Do not leave. The next insight could illuminate your most vulnerable moment of the day, a time when your body is already under a hidden strain. The post-meal peril. Showering. Immediately after meals presents a subtle yet critical risk often overlooked. For a great many older adults, the habit of showering immediately after a meal appears utterly harmless, even logically efficient and tidy. You finish your breakfast or lunch, perhaps clear the table with a sense of accomplishment, and then, without a second thought, without any conscious deliberation, step directly into the shower, convinced you are simply adhering to a sensible, well-ordered, and productive routine. However, a silent and critical physiological process unfolds within your body during those quiet moments immediately following a meal, a process that renders showering immediately afterward far more precarious and potentially dangerous than you could possibly imagine, particularly as you advance in age and your body's regulatory systems become less agile. Let's thoroughly explore the intricate science underpinning this hidden danger, delving into the internal mechanisms at play. The moment you consume food, your body's intelligent, finely tuned systems automatically initiate a significant redistribution of blood flow, shunting a substantial volume towards your digestive system, specifically to the stomach and intestines, to aid in the complex breakdown and absorption of nutrients. This is a perfectly natural, essential, and energy-intensive process known as postprandial blood redistribution, a physiological priority. For younger, healthy individuals, this internal shift largely goes unnoticed. Their remarkably resilient circulatory systems adapt seamlessly, compensating without any discernible discomfort or impact on other organ systems. But for people over 60, whose arteries are often less elastic, more rigid, and whose circulatory systems possess diminished adaptability and responsiveness to sudden shifts, this profound blood shift can leave the brain temporarily undersupplied with its vital needs, a consistent flow of oxygen and nutrient-rich blood. Now, layer onto this already precarious scenario the act of stepping into a warm shower during this precise time of peak digestive demand. The warm water itself triggers further widespread dilation of your skin's blood vessels, effectively drawing even more precious blood away from your core organs, and critically, away from your brain, which relies on a constant, uninterrupted supply. Compound this with the added physiological stress of standing upright in a confined, often steamy bathroom with inadequate ventilation, and you have, quite unintentionally, created the perfect storm for a perilous and sudden drop in systemic blood pressure and a severe acute reduction in cerebral blood flow, robbing your brain of its essential fuel. The potential consequences of this convergence are chilling and deeply concerning. Sudden, disorienting dizziness that can lead to falls, profound confusion, a complete collapse resulting in injury, or, in the worst and most tragic outcomes, a stroke directly triggered by a blood clot navigating through unstable or underperfused vessels, or a transient ischemic attack, TIA, that goes unrecognized until a more severe, permanent stroke strikes, leaving indelible damage. I vividly recall the case of Mrs. Hattie Reynolds, an 80-year-old retired church volunteer from the warm, hospitable state of Alabama. She was, in every sense, as kind and selfless as they come, perpetually prioritizing others' needs, always in motion, always meticulously on time, a pillar of her community. Her morning routine was immutable, a sacred ritual, oatmeal and coffee at 7:30 a.m., followed by her shower at 8 a.m., a pattern she had followed for decades. One day, mere minutes after finishing her breakfast, she proceeded into the shower as usual. Her husband, in another room, heard a heavy, sickening thud, a sound that would forever haunt him. He rushed in to find her unconscious on the bathroom floor, her pulse absent for several terrifying seconds, a desperate life-or-death situation. Paramedics, arriving swiftly thanks to her husband's quick call, were able to revive her, bringing her back from the brink. At the hospital, a CT scan revealed the grim and devastating truth. She had suffered a mild ischemic stroke. A clot had traveled to her brain, most likely formed due to the significantly reduced and turbulent circulation, further exacerbated by standing in warm water immediately after her meal, a combination that proved fatal to her brain cells. Mrs. Reynolds survived, but her speech is now noticeably slower and more labored, and her right arm exhibits a slight, persistent tremor, a constant reminder of that morning. She is still undergoing the arduous process of recovery, fighting to regain lost function. To this very day, she cannot reconcile how such a seemingly insignificant and routine decision, to shower after breakfast, almost irrevocably stole her life, her cognitive abilities, and her cherished independence. Her case is not an isolated incident. It is a tragically common occurrence. Many seniors are unknowingly placing their brains and hearts at immense preventable risk because this fundamental truth about circulatory physiology, about the demands of digestion, has never been imparted to them, never explained as a critical safety concern. After a meal, your body unequivocally requires time, not additional heat, not stifling steam, and certainly not the added stress of standing upright, to stabilize its complex systems and redistribute blood efficiently. What feels like just another innocuous step in your daily routine could, for your aging system, transform into a perilous moment, a silent physiological ambush. The recommendation is straightforward, yet profoundly vital and potentially life-saving. Wait a minimum of 30 to 45 minutes or even an hour after consuming a meal before stepping into the shower. Sit calmly, ensure you are well hydrated, and allow your digestive system to perform its crucial functions unimpeded, allowing blood flow to normalize throughout your body. If you feel a natural inclination towards tiredness or drowsiness after eating, prioritize rest first. Lie down or sit comfortably. Grant your brain and heart the necessary time to recover from the internal demands of digestion before introducing the additional stress of a shower. Because even though you cannot visually perceive the intricate events unfolding within your blood vessels, the subtle shifts in pressure and flow, that does not negate the very real and present danger. It is there, subtly but powerfully fostering the formation of dangerous blood clots, causing vessels to narrow further and, in some tragic instances, severing the very flow of life to the brain, leading to irreversible damage. But even if you meticulously adhere to perfect timing, remain diligently hydrated, and skillfully manage your routine, there still lies another surprising danger, one that often catches seniors off guard, one that has nothing whatsoever to do with timing or water temperature. It is entirely about how long you remain standing still and the profound impact your aging blood flow experiences when movement ceases. What I'm about to disclose next may irrevocably alter the way you approach your shower routine forever, prompting a fundamental reevaluation of how you view this daily act. The static trap, standing too long without support. At a superficial glance, the act of standing in the shower appears utterly innocuous, merely an ingrained, automatic component of a daily routine you faithfully executed throughout your entire life, practically since childhood. You might even, quite understandably, take a quiet sense of pride in your continued ability to perform this task unassisted, viewing it as a subtle yet significant affirmation of your enduring independence and physical capability. However, as a brain doctor who has dedicated countless hours to treating hundreds of older adults, meticulously observing their recoveries and their struggles, I can assert this truth with absolute certainty. Standing for an extended duration in the shower without adequate physical support constitutes a serious and insidious risk, one that possesses the chilling capacity to steal your precious balance, compromise your breathing and cardiovascular efficiency, and even impair your vital brain function. All of this can transpire without a single prior warning, without any dramatic overture, leaving you disoriented and vulnerable. As we gracefully age, the sophisticated and highly responsive mechanisms of our cardiovascular system, particularly those involved in regulating blood pressure and blood flow in response to gravity, become progressively less responsive and adaptable. The powerful muscles in your legs, which in younger years served as incredibly efficient pumps, actively aiding in the return of blood from your lower extremities back to your heart and brain, gradually become weaker and less effective due to age-related muscle loss and decreased activity. Consequently, blood begins to pool in the lower limbs, held there by gravity, when one remains standing still for prolonged periods, especially within the warm, dilating environment of a shower where blood vessels are already naturally relaxed and expanded. This physiological